But I still think there's the capacity for individuals, if you're placed in certain environments, to be nurtured and to be made into a leader rather than being born as one.
Welcome to the Sixth Hive podcast, where we explore how real opportunity, influence, and power are built through professional networks in business, technology, and leadership. Sixth Hive is more than a podcast. It's a business platform where founders, professionals, and organizations discover and build professional networks through curated communities, industry rooms, events, and conversations. If you're listening and thinking you need better networks and better access to the right people, you can join Sixth Hive today. It's free to sign up, and the link is in the show notes. This podcast is a window into the conversations happening inside the network. Let's get into today's conversation.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode on the Sixth Hive podcast. I hope that you've been enjoying the last episode and you've been listening to them more than once, because I'm giving you the creme de la creme. People that really hard to reach, but actually take the time to sit down with you and give you a bit of advice. I always feel that when you listen to a podcast, it's almost like when you're listening to a mentor. You might not have access to them, but you get to hear their voices and their point of view, but also how they can guide you in your journey to success, whether you are an entrepreneur, a professional, a leader, wherever you are on your journey is super important. And the guest that I have with me today has been someone that I've been following for years. And I've been brave enough. This is why I call be audacious to ask. There's so much power in being audacious and asking, because you never know what that person might say. And the worst that they can say is no. And then you just move on and focus on the next person. But David McQueen, how can I describe it in one word? I would say someone who's good trouble. I would say good trouble. Somebody who's not afraid to speak his mind and say what is right. And I think a lot of time people try to blend in just to be accepted. And sometimes that's not how we move a needle. And somebody who has made an impact, not just on leaders, but anybody who's trying to get to the top. And we're going to give some chance to introduce him, but I wanted to give you your flowers because I've been watching you from far. And sometimes I say, we never know who is watching us. It was inspired by us, but some form of way. And this is why I always post content, because people say, I've been following for a long time. I was like, I didn't know. And vice versa. So David, you have been my secret mentor that I've been following for a long time. So I'm delighted to share you with other people on this podcast. How are you?
I love that. No, do you know what? I'm going to say something.
Mm.
And so, as I said, in the same way, I've been a fan of what you do. You in a space there's a reputation that you have for being very driven around what it is that you do, and around your ambition. And so I like that. For both of us, there are going to be some people that we are Marmite. They're going to like us, and sometimes people aren't going to like us, and that's fine. I think it's a wonderful quote. I'm going to misquote it, but it's one of my favorite ones, and it's like, a lot of women aren't remembered just because they're good. Something towards that frame. All right. It's like being really encouraging rebellious women. And I'm not a woman, but I love that quote, because I'm like, at the end of the day, I don't want somebody just to remember me just because it was all fine. I want to know that people know that I came in, there was something in the room that people didn't want to talk about. And I was one of those people that just said, why are we pretending like this issue is not an issue? Let's just talk about it and we'll be fine. No one's going to die. At the end of the day, it's fine. So let me give you your flowers as well. I think it's very important that the work that you're doing, not only with Six Hive, but beyond, there are people who look to you, who admire what you do. So, I'm glad you reached out. You asked me the question. I was like, yeah, of course, come on. And I'm not being funny, but sometimes when people ask me to be on a podcast, or on a show, sometimes they don't even know why, but you were very clear about what you wanted. So that's fine.
Yeah, thank you so much, David. And I think it's exactly what you say. I think because nobody can fire us. I think that almost why we feel so liberated to say what we want.
Yeah.
And when you confine into jobs or you are part of a large enterprise, there's a lot of frustration or limitation of both can say and can do, and that makes people feel uncomfortable. But you're right. If you make people feel uncomfortable, that's how you drive change.
Yeah.
So I introduced you as good trouble, but how would you? I'm sure that's not your title in your biography.
That's what I should call my business, Good Trouble. That's what I should call it. So I would describe myself as, do you know what? I would describe myself in some ways very similar to you. My primary aim is I'm a community builder. That's what it is. I love to build community. So wherever I go, whether I'm going into an organization or whether I'm working outside of it, I love the concept of community.
Hmm.
And so, if somebody had really was to nail down, I'd take all those things like strategic advisor, executive coach, leadership. I'd take all those things and I'd part them, and I would literally just say the thing that I'm really passionate about is community building. And
Yeah.
whether we're doing that through writing, whether we're doing that like what we're doing here in a podcast, whether we're talking on social media platforms, for me, or most importantly in person, I think there's something incredibly powerful around building communities, and building communities where people are not afraid to disagree, but
Yes.
look at how, even if we do disagree, how do we work towards a bigger aim, bigger than ourselves?
Hmm.
So I think the only reason I don't put community builder in my profile is because people then kind of like want me to go and run their community center or something. It's like, so
I don't have time for this.
I'm
You
like,
know, I always believe the word
so,
community almost sounds like a social impact, but I think even companies don't realize how important it is to build, yeah, a
yeah,
circle around your business because people will choose to stay no matter what you do. And
yeah,
we've utilized that actually to drive business because at the end of the day, if people feel that they belong to something, they will stay in it, and that's super super important.
100%.
So, and I was really, you're right, like the term coach seems so bland. Everybody say that, but who is actually really, really good?
Yeah.
So maybe I would like to start from you, the beginning. I mean, your journey is phenomenal
Mhm.
and you made a lot of impact. So tell us about your journey, how it all started. And I mean, I'm not asking from 5 years old.
I'm touched with five. I'll give you the really quick summary. So both of my parents from the Caribbean. They came here in their 20s, in the late 60s. I call them expats, not migrants, because they already had a British passport and the British ended up in their country and
Thank
told them
you.
to come back. Right, so good. So they came here, very ambitious, always wanted us to be educated. I saw both of my parents build community. I saw my dad teaching summer schools to young students. I
Mm.
saw him doing lots, and I literally ended up modeling a lot of the stuff that I did. I ended up teaching students. I ended up working in prisons, in universities, in so many spaces, which was, an extension of what my dad did. And in terms of a career, my parents always wanted me to do what I call the migrant four, right? Even though I don't call them migrants, I'm going to say the label is the migrant four, right? It's either law, medicine, finance, or something to do with engineering.
Yeah.
And I understood it. That was for them. That was, look, this was your ticket out. That was the way you were going to be able to have that social mobility and be to. And I don't knock that at all. I think even in this day and age when parents do that, I go, that's fine, but let's add something more to it.
Mm.
So I went. I did a law degree for a year. Hated it. Quit. I was like, I'm not doing no degree. I'm done.
Mm.
I came out. I always loved business and I always loved finance. So I thought, right, let me just make them happy. And I went and I was an accountant. All the companies I worked for wanted me to be a qualified accountant. I was like, I couldn't tell them I'm just doing this to make my parents happy, right? I was like, let me understand the numbers. Let me understand how business works from a financial point of view. Absolutely good. Did all the things. Da 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 da. And then about 8 years in, I was like, do you know, I can't do this anymore. This is just not.
Mm.
And I've always loved technology as well, so I always tinkered with it. And I was like, oh, let me see if I can go in my job. Let me see if I can make a route with this. So I did a lot of programming. I at one point I was such an Excel wizard. Listen, let me tell you something. Right, I was on forums. I was doing the formulas. That see how AI is coming. AI is not ready for me and my skills,
It's
man.
not really for you.
They probably went and looked at my stuff on the forums and tried to pull that in. But I used to do these advanced financial modeling and analysis and stuff like that. Not because I enjoyed doing the thing itself, but like the reporting, but I enjoyed problem solving and being able to be in that space.
Wow.
Like that. And then I ended up in project management, ended up doing a lot of stuff, helping people implement new systems. And then I did that for about 8 years. And then in my late 30s, I realized that, a lot of people kept on asking me about how I speak in public, how my confidence arises, and a lot of people kept on coming to me like, this is what I want to do in my career. And I'm like, why are you asking me for? Like, mind your own business and go and find out for yourself. So asking me about it, and I kept on speaking about it. And then people paid for me to speak. And I was like, oh, so they're paying for me to speak to show them how to present, and they're paying for me to speak to talk to them about careers. And I did that and I really enjoyed it. But the careers one I found it was cool, but I realized it was a bit limiting. And so there were two bits I branched off from there. One was around enterprise. So I really, and to this day, I still love this. How can I get people to understand what does it look like to go and set up your business? Because a lot of people, £100, I mean, it's gone up. It used to be £50, £100 now they doubled it, right? But £100, you can go and you can set up a company in a day and you're fine.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, that makes it look really straightforward. But what about your governance? What about your back end? What about your due diligence that you need to do, your accounts, your all the rest of it?
Yeah.
So all that bit around, starting and growing a company, bits that I really like. But the bit that really caught my attention, and I've probably been doing this for the best part, I think of about, nearly 10 years now. Actually, no, more than 10 years. It's about, let me do my maths, about 15 years, actually. Yeah, I turned
Mm-hmm.
47 this year, so it's about 15 years, is I've been doing a lot of stuff around leadership linked through to
Mm-hmm.
that. And what I realized in that leadership piece, the core piece was recognizing I could still do the career piece because people will still know that. I can still talk to the technology because right about now, everybody wants to know about AI, right? And
Yeah.
to still know that and still do the presentation piece because people want to pitch for investment, people want to be able to speak to their board or speak to their staff. So all those bits came together, and that's where I'm at. And I think that the core, as I said, at the core of what I've done always is around that community piece. I really like bringing people together,
Yeah.
and recognizing that on one end there are going to be people who are going to pay me a premium to dig deep into what it is that I do. But then on
Mm-hmm.
the other end, there are going to be people who can't afford. And so I readily make some of that stuff accessible to individuals so at least they can start. And then when they're ready to kind of like pay, they'll come and pay me to do that work. So it's still
Absolutely.
that finance, that IT, that career, that presentations all builds into that community piece. And so that's where I'm at now.
I love that. I think one thing that I will pick up from what you just said is that, first of all, like our parents have a massive influence in terms of who we become. And I thought about what you just said because my mom said thing. She's always been a people person.
Yeah.
So I've took that from her as a favor. Like, people can give me tickets. I can't go. Can you go? It's like, yeah, go. And I will make new friends. Like, I just trust you. You'll be fine. I don't have to doubt this.
Yeah.
And that's something that's just super important. And the second thing that picked up is that your ability to recognize where your talent is needed.
Yes.
If you don't feel excited about your work, what's staying there? At some point you cannot grow a
Yeah.
career and realize that doesn't make sense for me. And I
Yeah.
think, for a moment that you don't feel challenged, that's a moment that you need to think about your next move. All right. So it's so easy to stay comfortable. But when you
Yeah.
stay comfortable, that's where AI comes to pick you up and take your job. Okay, I'm exaggerating.
Yeah.
And another what you say is that ability to understand how to solve problems. The more complex the problems are,
Yeah.
the more people will pay you for that. I was doing an event last week at Spotify, and I was saying that to the younger, say that be a problem solver.
Yeah.
If you become a problem solver and become the one who's the only one who can solve a problem,
Yes.
people will pay you lots of money. So a lot
Yeah.
of people talk about AI, but a lot of people don't know how to implement it in the
Yeah.
business, right? It's
Yeah.
easy to buy a tool, but you don't know against the regulation,
Mm.
especially when you work in a big company. So all these two elements are important. And if you actually say leadership, I will come back to leadership afterwards, but also technology. In the world that we're living,
Yes.
if your hands are not on technology, my friends,
Mm.
whatever it is, was 20 years ago or now, we all talk
Yeah.
about AI. This is a revolution. You have to stay curious and continuously evolve. And
Mm.
that's interesting how you brought the two together because it's two spaces that are extremely needed. And I think it's important for people who aspire to be top-notch coach like you, is that understand where the market is requires you, don't be so bland, and also where you bring your uniqueness. And that's also great. And as your personality. I want to talk about leadership because I think leadership is something that is often given to people
Mm.
and they realize I'm not a leader. And
Yeah.
also we've been often told that leadership is about you do what I say, I'm the boss.
Yeah.
I remember my first role as a manager. I tried to behave like that because the boss that I had before was like that. She was a terminator. She gave people anxiety. And then I realized, wait a minute, I don't want my team every time I come to feel fear, scared, anxiety, because what happens, it ends up being sick. I'm obviously giving you the worst case scenario,
Yeah.
but often we think about leadership as something that I'm supposed to have it all figured out.
Mm.
I'm listen to what I say. I'm going to be older than you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of assumptions. So maybe I will start with you, and as you work with a lot of leaders, what are the most common assumptions people make when it comes to leadership?
The biggest assumption that I think a lot of people make is that they are leaders. Again, right. I'm good trouble. Good trouble. But a big part of it is recognizing that people need to really break down and understand. Leadership is hard. It's,
Mm,
it's actually really, really hard. And a lot of people think that when they get into a specific role or they're given a specific title, that they already are leaders.
Mm.
And I think that it's a lot more complex than that. Sometimes when I see, these little memes on social media, a good manager is this and a leader is this. I just want to fight people. I want to punch them. And especially when coming from like university, like academic, popular people, I just want to just kick them in the ankles. Because it's not, okay, I'll give you an example because I think it's really important to do that. You imagine if you are in a position and you've got a team and you've got 4 people in that team, but you've come in, one of those people have been there for 20 years
Mm.
and they're okay. One brings in lots of revenue and lots of clients, but the behavior is terrible to junior staff.
Terrible. Yeah.
One is underperforming,
Mm.
right? And one is really good potential, but is afraid of that person who's a bully.
Mm.
To be a leader and to manage those 4 and lead those 4 people in the same direction, especially when you come in with new frameworks, new thinking, or what have you, and that person that has done 20 odd years has said, well, this is the way that we used to do it.
Yeah.
The bully's like, if you leave me, then I'm going to bring all my clients away with me. The person who's with no potential has just lost all their confidence. And the underperforming one, you're kind of like, I have to have the conversation and say, do you know what? Sorry, but in the direction that we're going, you're not fit for purpose in this
Yeah.
organization.
Mm.
I'm not necessarily saying all those individuals either need to go because it's a lot more complex. But you imagine if you're that person that's brought in to lead all those people in the same direction when they're pulling in 4 or 5, seeing all those things like a good leader comes in and shakes your hand in the morning, a good leader will give you coffee and will listen to you and be empathetic. I look at that and I go, are you actually, I won't swear because I'm on your thing, I'll make sure I don't swear, right? But I'm looking at that and I'm like, are you actually really serious? And when you start to really unpick what people in those positions, whether they are a CEO, whether it's a leader of a division, heck, it could be the leader of a small team in finance, whatever it is,
Mm.
there's something around going, right, first and foremost, if you want to be a leader, you have to be very well aware that you're taking people on a journey.
Mm.
And when you're taking people on a journey, the second thing I always say is you need to know whether or not you're capable of taking people on that journey. You have
Correct.
to be aware of that. Because sometimes people think they can take people on a journey. I'm like, brother, sister, just leave the people there. Go somewhere else. You're not a leader. You're a very good independent contributor. That's
Mm.
what you are. You're very good at your and people don't really like to hear that. But for me, I think it's important to do that.
Yeah.
And then the third bit for me is that support mechanism, because you can't take people there unless you've got that support. Too many people think that they have to do this thing on their own. No, any success, any success that anybody has, it's down to a team. There has to be a team. Yes, you
Mm.
might be the person who's saying, right, this direction we're going in, but a pilot can't fly a plane without somebody loading the baggage.
That's true.
Or that flight will not be enjoyable. You're not doing a 12-hour flight across the world unless you're getting food and drink and somebody doing your little pillows and all the rest of it. So there's got to be somebody in that space to make sure that what you're doing as well.
Correct.
For me, the big assumption that a lot of people make is that they think that leadership is a lot easier than it is. And sometimes people who think just because they've been given a title that they're a leader, they're not. Sometimes you're a manager and sometimes you're an independent contributor. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean in any way that it knocks who you are. Sometimes if that's your lane, that's your lane.
Do you believe? I'm going to ask you a question, and I think that I love what you're saying. I remember listening to a podcast where I can't remember the name of this lady. She became the CEO of Burberry, and she explained, as you said, take on this vision, and she could see from her body language,
Mm.
some people are not prepared to follow that vision. And she said to them, like, if you are not prepared to follow this vision, I will give you a 3 months nice paycheck, and you are free to go. But if you
Yeah.
decide to stay, this is a journey, and I want to make sure that you're on board. And I think sometimes, like, people don't understand that part of being a leader is also being comfortable not being liked, having
Yes.
the toughest conversation.
Yeah.
And I've seen many times where if you want to be liked by all your people, forget it. Don't be a leader. Don't be. Choose. I say, choose to be a great coffee maker or whatever it is. Don't be
Yeah.
that person if you don't want to have a difficult conversation and
Yeah.
do that. Because a number of times I hear even just from friends who are senior leadership are here, where I get to the appraisal and I'm discovering this, like, why was I being told before that's bad leadership? You're avoiding
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, the question I wanted to ask is that, can somebody become a good leader? Is it something that you are naturally good at? And do you think that people, or some people could never be that as part of the character will never make them a good leader?
I think leaders are made, not born.
Mm,
You may be born with well, you may be born or nurtured with specific characteristics that allow people to be able to do that. But I still think it's made. It goes back to the thing that we were saying before.
yeah,
Both of us are people persons. I don't know if that makes a sense as well, but
that's
we are around people because of our parents. Our parents created that space for us to be able to go into any room that we want to be able to go to and hold our own.
correct.
Flip side, though, there are some people that can do that, but they are just because they can do that doesn't necessarily mean that they are good at taking people on a journey. There are some people that can go into any room and chat to anybody, but to get to a deadline, to make sure that governance is in place, to make sure that there's really good financial structures and stuff around. Not everybody can do that. So for
Mm,
me, that's why I say a lot of that stuff, especially in a professional sense, I believe that it is, whether you're in a sporting team and somebody's coaching you, whether you are running an actual, a business or whatever size, it could be a social enterprise or a multi-million pound company. For me, I think a lot of that stuff comes through making, because it is really complex and it is really contextual. And very often, people who are placed in positions of leadership are having to navigate individuals and situations that they've never ever dealt with before. And
correct.
so for me, it's in that sense I believe that there are a lot of people, and I think a vast majority of people, if they get out of the way of their own ego, if they
Mm,
get out of the way of misunderstanding what, you know, um, or stop looking at some models of leadership which are not very, very helpful, I believe most people. Okay, let me give you an example. Anybody can be a fire warden.
mm,
Anybody can be a fire warden. And if you're a fire warden and the alarm goes off and you have that whistle and that clipperboard and you say to everybody, you need to exit the building to the left, go down the stairs, do not run, do not use the lift. Whether you are a janitor or a CEO, at that moment in time, the fire warden's the leader
that's it.
and they're telling you to get out of the building. And what that person has been instructed in is they've been told this is what it is, the high visibility, bum, 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 bum. We've trained you. This is what you do to need to be able to get out. We'll show you how to do first aid. We'll show you blah, 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 blah.
Mm,
Nobody goes, right, I just want to be a fire warden. But people can become shaped into being that.
mm,
Slightly different when you're running an organization, right? When you're having to manage finance and marketing and operations. And I actually think a lot of people who are CEOs, and I'll say this, I think a lot of us who are CEOs are a bit crazy. I don't think we're right. I, most of us are CEOs. I think there's something not right with us. I think there's something a bit. I think most of us are a bit crazy. I'm just straight up. I think we're a bit touched. But to be able to do that and to be in a space where you drive things, where you have that ambition, where you know that you go into there and you're like, you know what, if 2 out of the 10 people in the room like me, I'm cool with that. Even if it's just one, let's go. I think there has to be something inside you that kind of like drives you. But I
mm,
still think there's the capacity for individuals, if you're placed in certain environments, to be nurtured and to be made into a leader rather than being born as one.
I love this. I think it's so important. The question I wanted to ask you before, because we wanted to talk about critical decision making, but is your environment preventing you from becoming a great leader, or is it you haven't been given the support and guidance to become one? How do you know if it's the company that's preventing you from being a great leader, or is it you who are preventing yourself from becoming one?
I think it's a combination.
Okay.
Sometimes it can lean one way or the other. And I'm a big fan of assessments.
Mm,
And let me frame this very differently. I'm not the biggest fan of personality tests because I know that people can game personality tests and do all that kind of stuff. And the personality tests are not contextual. A personality from West Africa is very different from a personality from China, is very different from a personality from
because that's culture, isn't it?
right. There's a cultural context which very often so many of those personality tests don't pick up. They're very much global north focused. They don't tend to focus on the nuances.
Mm,
But I like assessments where I find out how people make judgment or how they make critical decisions. And so when I do the majority of the assessments that I like to do when I'm with people and asking them questions is I'll go, right, do you know what? Okay, here you go. Here's a situation. You're faced with X or you're faced with Y. Tell me which one of these solutions you will get to and explain and give me your thinking while you're going through that.
I love that.
When I do that, okay, so some people think they can game the system. I'm like, you don't know me because I will mash you up, right? Yeah, well, I've got questions in this loop. Don't try and play this game with me. I've been
Don't blame
doing
me.
it. I'm going grand chess master on this, so you're not going to play with me. But what it does is, and this is it comes back to a kind of like what we spoke about before. A lot of a critical decision making you can find out from the assessments you give to individuals. Like I love leadership development course and I've run loads, but you know what some of my favorite ones have been is where you
Mm.
get a group and you throw them into a simulation and a scenario and
Oof.
they have to demonstrate that leadership on the spot.
I
Man,
love that.
you know the amount of people I've seen get angry and get upset in those situations. And I'm like, good, because we really see what you're like now. When you were all smiley, hey, we can work together. And I put you under a bit of pressure and you just become the worst person.
Amen. Ever.
You become the worst person. You really reveal yourself. I'm like, but this is good because then at least it allows us to really find out how you operate. But it also, in that situation, it also makes you realize what kind of environment you work in really well. Like I admire people who work in, say, accident and emergency in a hospital.
Oof, that's tough.
That for me is the worst scenario. Like seeing human pain and having to triage and figure out what's going to be best and prioritizing which one is going to live and who's going to die and who's going to be the surgeon and what have you, when all those extra bits of noise are around you. For me, people who do that are incredibly gifted. And I
Yes.
look at that but in the same way, I still think it's the same kind of mindset for somebody who's doing Formula One. If you're doing Formula One in a car, you've got a few seconds to turn around this fast car to get it back out there to make sure it's running actually effectively.
Yeah.
The thinking that you have to do on the spot is amazing. And so a lot of times it is about part of the assessment I do as well is understanding what environments people like really working in. Sometimes people just like to be in a spot where they go, right, give me the code or give me my paint or give me my whatever it is. Tell me what you want by the end of the week and leave me alone.
Mm.
And I will deliver for you. Other people are like, right, I need to be in the center of an open office and I need to be there. I need to be kind of like navigating. And so for me, a lot of it does depend on the actual, and obviously it's complicated even more now. We've got hybrid working, right? Because it's just things have changed a lot, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But I do think that it's a combination. Some people, when you assess them, you will find out how they cope under pressure.
Mm.
But at the same time, I think it's important to understand, is this the right environment for you to be able to thrive under pressure? Because if it's not, no matter how much you look and you test that person, if that's not the right environment, they're never going to thrive. So I think it's important to understand that it's a combination of the two to see what works.
Quick pause, because conversations like this are powered by organisations that believe in strong professional networks. Partnering with Sixth Hive isn't about logo placement. It's about meaningful access to high-value professional networks and the founders, professionals, and decision-makers inside them. If you're interested in sponsoring a Sixth Hive event or podcast, you'll find the details in the show notes. And if this episode resonates with you, share it with someone in your network. Now let's get back to the conversation.
There's something that you say about time that I think has always been one of the elements that I've always tried to disconnect from not necessarily success, but from decision making.
Yeah.
If you give somebody a month to make a decision, they will take a month to make a decision. If you say you have 24 hours to make a decision, you have to make 24 hours from decision. It's pretty much in terms of how much are we prepared to stretch our mind.
Yes.
And the mind is probably one of the most fascinating organ of the body, right? It can do so many things. And I love that element of time as you describe it. Like in emergency, these people have been given this amount of time, so they know they have to make a decision. But if they were given a week, they would take a week to make the decision, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that is so important, especially as people who are either entrepreneurs or career. We always feel that we have enough time. We do not. We do not. And also be careful of the time that you give to people because you can never back. That's the only currency that every day you lose and you never get back.
100%. And if to your point, if there was, and I mean, look, I don't think that any entrepreneur can healthily survive in an environment like the A&E.
I know, that's insane.
Like whenever I hear about high performing teams, one of the things that always intrigues me is When do they have time to just take a step back and
Yeah.
actually rest? And it's interesting because I have this concept. I've been writing about it quite recently for myself. I haven't put it out there. I say if there should be actual intelligence before we put our hands on artificial intelligence.
Ooh, tell us more.
So get your AI right. And so what I mean by that is there very often we have outsourced our critical thinking. We've outsourced our sense making. We've outsourced our gut and our judgmental thinking to technology. All right. So, for example, I've been doing this experiment where if I know where I'm going in London, I won't type in the destination into my car.
So how'd you get there?
If I know where I'm going, I'm not
Oh, so if
typing.
you know where you're going. Ah, okay.
I won't type it in.
Ah,
Only reason I will type it in is if I hit traffic
yeah,
and have a quick route. But
yeah.
I literally know that I will get into my car, I'll put my phone on, and I'll immediately talk to Siri. Siri, I want to go to W blah 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 blah. I put it in, Waze comes up, dum 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 dum.
Mm,
Siri, please tell me I want to listen to a podcast on X. All right.
mm.
And what I've done is I've gone, right, okay, if I have to purposely think about what I want to listen to before, I spend my time queuing that up. And why do I want to listen to this podcast, or why do I want to listen to this music? Because sometimes I know if I'm driving down the road and I'm listening to, like, generally speaking, if I'm listening to hip hop in the middle of the day, right, and somebody cuts me up, that's not good. Good. It's not good for that person.
Get a voice coming back and go ahead.
I'm not getting the calm days, right? So I make
Nothing.
in the day, honestly, in the day when I'm driving, I have to have preferably music without lyrics, and it has to be a lot more chilled because I just know how it will affect my body and my system.
Yes, music is energy, yeah?
100%.
Mm.
And so the reason what I'm saying here is that there are times as well when I'm driving down the road where I'm like, why do I have to fill the silence? Why
Mm,
can't I just drive? Why do I have to listen to a podcast? There are
mhm.
sometimes when I go for a walk and I'll go for a walk for an hour. Why do I have to have headphones in my ear? Why
Yeah,
can't I just hear the cars going past or hear the birds or all this kinds of stuff?
that's true. No one
And
has in silence, right? We're not
100%.
comfortable with that. Yeah.
And what I realize is that sometimes we do not create enough space for ourselves to just be.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to have a book in our hands. I've always wanted to go on a silent retreat. One day I will go, right? But go on a silent retreat for 3 days. No books, no phones, no digital, just silent. I know I'll go mad. I know I would. I know I'll go mad.
And
But
especially like people like us, we are I mean, I'm hyperactive. I know I'm hyperactive. I'm always trying to solve a problem. I always find a way to start a business. If I could, I would start a business every day because there's always something to do, but I just don't have the capacity to do everything else. And I remember I used to use Twitter and say like, oh, I don't have the idea for this, but if you want to do it, take the idea.
yeah,
But you're right. I think we've not even just. I think it's not just even silence. It's just self-care. I try to showcase that. Yeah, I'm working really hard, but I will prioritize my sleep, my 7 hours sleep. I prioritize going to the gym. I prioritize what I put in my stomach and everything else because I'm the engine of my business, right? At the end of the day, and if this is not right, the rest is not working. Let's talk about. I want to talk about critical decision making, and I think it's one of the things that is very important nowadays where, as you say yourself, we're
mhm,
living a lot of decision now being made by AI. I almost feel like we as an element where we almost doubting ourselves a little bit and
mhm,
relying too much on technology. There's a danger with that, as you
yeah,
say. It's as it's good and as bad thing.
yeah,
Given a simple example, I lost my phone when I was in Canada. I realized I can't do anything. Payment gone. This gone. No, everything is gone. The way we rely so much on technology can be good and bad. And I'm
yes,
curious in terms of how you, not necessarily a conversation about AI, but in terms of when it comes to making decision and the cost it has on companies of all sizes. And what is the problem that you have identified that maybe companies need to think about if they
yeah.
haven't yet?
So for me, uh, I love frameworks.
Me
I
too.
love frameworks, right? So and as much as I can, if I can incorporate food or music into the work that I do, I will do that.
It's a good one to remember as well. I'll put some plantain.
100%.
Yes.
All right. I'm not arguing with you about pronunciation. This is your podcast. We're not going to fight about it today. This is your podcast. But so one of the things that I use specifically, I use this thing. It's called I call it, it's like the 7 dimensions of consequential thinking, especially
Okay.
when people are making. So the framework I use or to use the musical frameworks, is called cadence. So
Mm.
cadence is all about rhythm and being able to align yourself to that specific rhythm. And so they're kind of like 7 pillars that I look at. So I look at context, which is C, architecture. So how does this look like within the organization as a whole? Decision, what are you actually deciding? Economics, what's the cost of this decision? What's opportunity cost? What's the actual cost of it? The narrative, how are you going to explain this to individuals? The consequence, what actually happens if this goes well, and what happens if it doesn't? And then
Mm.
execution. Now that you've got all those things together, how are you going to go and deliver? So that
Yeah.
cadence, those 7 principles, CADENCE, I'm making sure it's 7, yeah. So the cadence of that rhythm is getting people to kind of like, you don't have to always go, right, let me get a C or an A or what have you, but it gives a sense as to when you actually have to make a decision, how does this sit in the rhythm of everything else that I have?
Mm.
So for example, and I wrote about it today actually, I
Okay.
remember a number of years ago, I was hired by a number of CEOs to come in, and they had a really difficult member of staff, and they wanted to make a decision as to whether they should keep them or fire them. And I came in and I would coach, and by the way, every single one of those individuals that I coached, they ended up staying at the company, because it wasn't about them being fired, it's about they weren't being led properly. They were
Yes.
problematic.
It's always leadership. I always find that. Yeah.
They were problematic, but they just weren't led properly.
Mm.
And so for me, I went and I looked at that. And again, as I said, what's the consequence of this? What's the economic impact? How does it affect the culture? All that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And so I use that simple framework of cadence to a lot of the clients that I work with, and just go, these are the simple columns or simple 7 kind of like ticks that I want you to think about. And so when you have to make a decision about investment, when you have to make a decision about firing staff, building your culture, developing a product, go to market strategy, and you have to think about which one is the most critical, that's the cadence model that I'll actually end up using with them. And a lot of it is kind of like steeped in organizational design. It's steeped in business and economics, sociology, anthropology. There's a deep science behind all of them. But again, no matter how deep the science is, you've got to be able to explain it to people simply so that they don't get lost. But the
Yes.
principles is that this is very underwritten by some serious principles of thinking and science. But I want you to be able to use it it's almost like we don't think about the mechanics that happens when we start our car. All right. And once
Yeah.
upon a time, like I remember once upon a time, I said my dad had the old car where you had to wind the thing to start it. All right.
What?
If it was probably he had one of those older cars.
Yeah.
And then obviously you could hot wire them, you could kind of like, and then you have the ignition. Now we get into a car and we press a button,
Mm.
start, boom. We have no idea what's going on. But the tool that I use around that is cadence is like that button. Click that button, because underneath it all is something that's working and that's mechanical and it makes sense. But it allows you, when we get into a car, we don't go, will this car start? We press the button and then we go, right, we're going to go and drive. Let's make sure we've got oil, water. Let's make sure we service it, and then we go for it. And that's the way I think about it. It's that, we I was going to use a food metaphor, but I'm going to stick with the car one. It just really makes you think, all right, if I give you this tool, the idea is that you don't have to spend too much time thinking about what could go wrong, what could go right, all this kind of stuff. I'm just giving you a simple linear route that you can use, and then you have to make the decision. You've got to execute at the end.
Mm. And that works because you mentioned founders as much, entrepreneurs, founders as much as um, professionals or
Yeah.
people from bank enterprise. So it works for everybody, that approach.
Yeah. 100%. Like I think about the amount I've recently been working with quite a few charities or social enterprises,
Mm.
and a lot of the conversation around startup and founders tend to be more corporate, right? Tend to be more profit making ones. But I also say to a lot of the social enterprise, I still, even though your total aim isn't return on investment for investors, it's about the impact that you make. I still want you to approach it with the same rigor. You still got to think critically about your funding. You still got to think critically whether this is sustainable. Like I was speaking to 3 entrepreneurs the other day, and I literally said, the 3 of you are running 3 separate businesses, and you could literally come together as one and you'd be better. And I said, the
Mm.
only thing that stops you from doing that is your ego.
Is it ego or trust issue? Because I think sometimes you talk about this element of ego,
Mm.
and because also there's also a bit of a as I said, trust issue because you hear stories or nightmare stories of people founding businesses of somebody else, and then they didn't really discuss. The marriage honeymoon was fantastic, and then they ended up doing that. And I realized I've always again, I'm probably gonna put myself in the spot as I always I started solo founder because I was like, I'm tired of waiting for someone to do it. I'm just gonna do it, right? And I never said I have a friend who was like, I never start the business without a co-founder. That's his thing. He's like, no idea, but he has to make sure that the relationship is solid.
Yeah,
And so spend a bit more time. And I say I'm not going to do another business, but if I was starting another business, I know that I would definitely start with somebody else.
yeah,
It was extremely hard, especially building Six Hive has been probably one of the most challenging one, a tech company
yeah,
when don't have a tech background. But I
yeah,
think sometimes that you are worried that if your ambition and your drive doesn't match somebody else, and
mm,
I've seen as well so many times people say, yeah, this person didn't do what they're supposed to do, and then they end up killing the business because NDA or IP or whatever it is. So there's a bit of that ego, as you say yourself. But
yeah.
as myself, as a always sort of solo founder,
Mm.
I've never, I'm not saying I never found, but I've never probably looked at somebody to look
I
at me
think,
and I'm just going to do it, right?
I think that's a problem. I
Yeah,
think,
I agree
I
with you.
think,
It's a big problem because that's also the reason why a lot of Black women don't have access to a lot of funding because a lot of, and I tell you that one of my investors said to me that when you go and pitch, they don't expect you to turn it by yourself. I'm like, what? Saying that you're supposed to be turning with a maximum three people, but
yeah,
you're turning by yourself means that your team doesn't even believe in you enough to come and pitch with you. And
uh,
then when you look at who gets funded the most are
mm,
people who have a co-founder, or say, white men, blah, 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 and so on. Because
mm,
these circles that have been built, years ahead of us and whatever it is, also reasons. And so I agree with you. It is a problem,
yeah,
but we don't even know it. But at the same time, when you come from a background where you are probably the most ambitious around your circle, if you think about it, like you come and decide, I want to have a different outcome,
mm.
and you don't come from the circles and you reinvent it and you try it for yourself.
But
But
that's why this is why I said the point I
mm,
was saying about ego, and
yeah,
is involved in this as well, right? It's
hmm,
definitely linked. So to your point around the founders piece, when you're doing that, I say this to people all the time: rock
yeah,
up in there with either with a board of advisors or individuals that you want to partner with, because
correct.
that's the game. That's
Yeah,
that's what they're expecting. I say to a lot, I get myself in trouble all the time, but I say to a lot of black women, go and find yourself an older, middle-aged white man that will sit down on your board or work with you who's got a network. Why? Because at the
yeah,
end of the day, that's the game is the game. That's how a lot of people
correct.
do it. And so for me, I don't necessarily think you have to have a co-founder, but individuals who you can partner with, whether that's
Yeah,
somebody who can help you with the technology, whether it's going to be somebody that's going to help you with your marketing or your finance, have those individuals. They don't have to have shares. They don't have to
yeah,
be a co-founder, but they have to be able to be aligned with your mission and understand what you're doing. Some of them could work for their own company, but feed into yours. That's fine. But
yeah.
the bit I keep on reiterating around leadership is that you're taking people on a journey, and you
Mm,
can't take people on a journey if it's just you. You've
that's
got to be able
true.
to have other people around you. So that's what I mean by that.
Okay, I get it. Okay, yes, so I agree. I agree with you. I think, and it's so important to have people even above you. And I think, I hear stories of a woman who, the only Pam, I can't remember, okay, the name come out of my head, but Pam, she's the only black woman who's made it to the top. She was a CEO at Avanade and then moved to Microsoft. And but she had free mentors, free sponsors. And I said to black men all the time, it's like, if you think that you're going to make on your own, you are dreaming.
100%. You have to have what I call your squad. It's important to
Yes.
have your squad wherever you are. I know that there are, when I again, as I said, I help a lot of people to fundraise. Right? It's one of the things I've always. It's not front and center, but it's something that I still do.
Mm,
One of the things that I realize in fundraising is that a lot of the people who are in there, I learn a lot of the secrets from them. And again, to your point, it's like having a number of individuals in the room. It's around, understanding the contract, your cap table, vesting, all those kinds of stuff, which sounds really kind of like alien to a lot of people governance. I'm like, I'll sit down and I'll have the conversation. Like I've got little assessments that make sure that people are investment ready. Like, what do you have
mhm.
in place? What funding do you need? Are you bootstrapping? Do you need angel? Do you need venture capital? Do you need a private equity to come in here so you can exit the business? All those things for me are incredibly, incredibly important. And I realize that the reason why I know that is because I've been surrounded by a squad who've been able to feed that into me.
I
And
love
so then
that.
I can feed that into other people. And so again, as I said with those three, what it was, and again, I was very direct with them, is that they were doing three things separately, which they could have done a lot stronger if they brought it together. Now, here's the
Together.
thing, and to your point, trust, ego, what have you. Again, good leadership for me is going, all right, do you know what? If the three of us come together, we need to have really strong contracts. And in
Mm,
those strong contracts, that determines our behavior, that determines break clauses, that determines how we approach clients, all the governance piece that comes
yeah.
around. And at the
Mm,
end of the day, we don't have to be best of friends, but we can have a bigger picture. And for me, it's those things. That's why I come back to this whole point when we were talking about the critical decision making. Is very often, sometimes we won't make a critical decision because we're afraid or we're
Mhm.
uninformed. And for me, you make better decisions when you have more information, not too much, but when you have more information. And sometimes that more information may not be something that you hold on yourself, but it
Yeah.
may be what somebody else is giving to you. So it's
Mm.
just being able to surround yourself with those individuals that can feed into that, if
I
that
agree
makes
with you. And I think that's also the reason why I was so keen on creating Six Hive is realizing that you don't know what you don't know.
yeah,
And you might be working in an environment that actually stop you from achieving your growth, and you need to find those new circles. Coming back to that, because I almost feel that, we talk about leadership, and I didn't even know that you were doing something with founders as well. So it just shows you in terms of the breadth of what leadership means.
mm,
Leadership is not just people; it's also being able to scale their business.
yeah,
If you had to give people like not so much a step by step in terms of things that they should invest in when it comes to becoming a great leader.
mm,
Almost people always think that technical skills are more important, but I think that soft skills are actually much more important.
yeah,
But learning about how to adaptability, about relationship building, that's
yeah,
not something that you learn in a book. So
yeah.
can you?
And again, a lot of it is it's you can learn some in a book, but I think there's something incredibly powerful about learning it from other people.
Right.
Again, as I said, I turn 57 next month. And there are a lot of individuals who still are shocked that I have a mentor. And I'm
Mm,
like, my
really?
mentor, yeah, I've got a mentor. He's 9 years older than me. I've got two
What?
mentors.
What are they shocked though? I don't understand this. I think you never stop having a mentor.
But but that's what people are because they think it's something that a lot of people will have an idea and they think, oh, a mentor's only for young people who don't know things.
Oh.
And I'm like, I say to people, there's this, and it really dawned on me. The older I get, the more I realize I don't know as much as I thought I do. Right?
Yeah.
Older I get, I sit down like again, like quite recently, I've been writing some stuff around governance as a whole because I've been seeing lots of conversations around AI governance, right? And
Mhm.
I think in the pecking order of governance, AI is probably about fifth because you
Mm.
need to have financial governance, you need to have the cultural governance. There's so many other bits that you need to have before that. I'm not saying it's not important, but to the grand scheme. But I went away and I was reading some of my old stuff, and I was doing this thing, just simply writing this article, which I thought was going to take about an hour.
Mm.
3.5 hours later, I'm pulling up this stuff that I did not know, like acts, like official parliamentary acts that you had to have in place, especially when you're doing financial regulation or in regulated industries. I was thinking about all these different policies, and I was like, wow. So I pulled together a lot of this, and I did a quick thing on Claude. I was like, okay, give me a list of some of the things that I don't like, and then I pinged it out to about 10 friends, and then they came back to me and they go, yeah, you need to know this as well, and I was like, what? I'm literally in this, and don't get me wrong, I don't need to have to know all those things at once. But being
Yeah.
able to have exposure and knowing that those individuals around me were able to go, look, here's something else, Dave, because this is my expertise because I'm an accountant, or this is my expertise because I'm a business analyst, or this is my
Yeah.
expertise because I'm a marketer. Pulling that stuff together, I think, is invaluable. And that for me is why that squad is so important because you get to learn more. And again, to this bit around being a founder is that sometimes, and this is one of the biggest ones that I share, and some people don't really accept the best. But sometimes being the founder might mean that what it is you are really just the idea and the technician person. You
Yes.
might need to bring in a CEO who is the leader.
Yeah. Do you know that's my dream? Honestly, people don't realize that that's my dream. I'm always been a visionary. I'm not the person who wants to carry the titles.
Yeah,
My life is so that I just like to put an idea, and if you think about just the six five idea, I know nothing technical, and I'm
yeah,
good. I'm lucky that I have a team that can help bring my
yeah,
vision to life. And what you're describing is so important, and that's why ego needs to be out of the door. Because if you always want to be the one who wear the bigger hats, then don't start a business. If it's I mean, you can start a business if it's just to make money. Nothing wrong with that. But if you believe that sometime your business outgrew you, let
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Let go.
As I said to you earlier, focus on flying the plane, not serving the drinks.
Fly the goddamn plane. Don't fly
Or,
drinks.
or let me take it to the next level. Richard Branson doesn't fly planes.
He dance on the plane. That's what he does.
Yeah. All right. But Virgin Atlantic, right? You think of Virgin Atlantic, you immediately think of Richard Branson, but you don't think of him flying the plane.
No, you do not. You do not. I mean, I've read this founder story. It's probably one of the most great stories. And somebody said to me that be more like Richard Branson, really said like be more audacious. And
Mm.
and someone said to me that there's something about you that you feel. It's like, yeah. I was like, I post whatever I want to post, right? So it's just me and my person, and that's how opportunities come to me because,
Be
like,
more neat erotic though.
yeah,
I honestly, I've worked with Richard Branson, and I would say that
yeah,
although he's one of my heroes, I have more admiration for Anita Roddick with what she did with the Body Shop.
oh yeah. But she wasn't a great. She made terrible investment though. Did you not hear? The guy, I think the guy took 50% of his business for £7,000 at the time, which was
And you live and learn, but
even then.
I'm talking about the boldness and the audacity she had to build that brand and build
Tell
an.
us because I think people don't know her story.
So yeah,
What do
she
you
was
think?
owner of the Body Shop,
Mm,
and she and again, I think let me also put a caveat in that when we look at some of our business heroes, some of them have come from very privileged backgrounds, right?
that's
Not many of us can get away with not paying £250,000 in VAT like Richard Branson did when he was in his 20s. All right.
no way.
There are some caveats that come with that. But for me, it's the principle of the mindset. And what I really liked about what she did with the Body Shop, and again, to your point, there were some mistakes that she made, even when she sold it off and all the rest of it. But there was something really powerful around the, she was one of those women that would walk into a room and she would hold her own. Ain't no stupid man telling her that she can't go and do this. She was like, I'm going to do it. I'm
Yeah.
actually going to do it. Like, actually, even more than Richard Branson was Richard Branson's mum. The
Mm,
way she got him to do like some stuff, like in this day and age, she'd probably get arrested because they would just say, you're not a very careful parent, and that's not careful. But he gave him that sense of risk and adventure from quite young. And
yeah.
so I think that, again, if anybody gets a chance, I can't remember the name of the book off the top of my head, but if you can read about individuals like Anita Roddick, and other, there are a lot of I've said this, I did a thing on LinkedIn last year. There are
Mm,
a lot of underrated women who have created businesses. And I've got a list somewhere. I'll send it to you when I'm done. But it's a
yes.
list of a lot of women who have set up their businesses and done really well,
Mm,
away from all the usual. I don't want to hear about no bloody Elon Musk or Steve Jobs.
yeah.
A lot of those guys I'd never work. I couldn't work for Steve Jobs or Elon Musk. One of them they get punched in the mouth. Those guys would I would punch him in the mouth. I'm telling you straight up now. I would have
Wow.
punched that guy right in his face. And I'm not advocating violence. I'm just telling you what I like. Because if you came and tell me that, I'm knocking you the hell out. But there are so many other examples of individuals that do that. Yes, I still do some work with founders, but it primarily is I either work through an agency as a trustee through social entrepreneurship, or
Mm,
I work with founders who are raising like 2.5 million or above, because that just tends to be
mm.
more intense, and it's that just tends to be where my energy goes.
I love that. I was about to ask you like, where do you like to, spend? What are people that you like to work with? But you give me the answer. That's good. I have a last question to ask you because I think it's been a very
That's all good.
interesting
Been good.
conversation. And at the same time, I want to like you build yourself a character by someone, and there's a lot of things that person does that actually helps people enlighten them where
Yes.
they should come to you,
Yeah.
and so forth. So, when you think about your legacy, it's my final
Mhm.
question. How would you like to be remembered?
Um, do you know what? I want people to think of me this way now.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, there's going to be a legacy that's going to come, but I don't want nobody coming to. As I said, I've got this thing, right? You're going to laugh now. I've got this video that I told my daughters that I want them to play at my funeral, and it's going to be like, "What are you doing here? You never came and saw me when I was living. Why are you here now? I'm dead."
Yeah, it's so funny. Do you know when I'm from Cameroon, like, and when somebody die, you don't wear black. It's a celebration because you
Right.
celebrate the life. You sound like you kill a person. That's how you
No,
want
I
it.
don't
I'm the
want. I
same
don't
thing as
think
I
I
want
can't
to
do it.
drink champagne and
Wear
give life.
color, color. Wear white. I want you to celebrate my life. Yes, you can mourn, but at my funeral, I want you to celebrate my life, and then you can go and wear black afterwards.
Mm,
But the bit that I really want to be remembered, I want people to really see all the time that I really care deeply.
mm,
I remember there was a thing, and I can share it with you now. I was actually going to put a post on LinkedIn, and I thought, no, I ain't going to bother. I'll just talk about it. But there are a number of individuals that are either afraid or will not work with me because they think that the impression that they give is I'm too expensive to work with, which I don't mind. I don't mind, because sometimes people you need to
Well,
pay.
some of this term too expensive because it means that they don't
Come back.
see value in what
Yeah.
you offer. Yeah.
And listen, because I don't mind, because sometimes it's a good filter, right? You don't get the time wasters.
Yeah.
What? But one of the things that I know is that there are hundreds of people who I've directly mentored over the years,
Mm,
hundreds, and
wow.
never charged a penny. There are hundreds of individuals in business, in
Mm.
sport, in entertainment, who I've had significant played a significant role in helping to develop their mental attitude and their business and what have you. I won't talk about it because I always say I will talk about it as a concept, but
Yeah.
I let my mentees and people I work, I let them speak rather than it for me.
Yeah.
And because I do so much more of that, I'd say for every 10 people I've mentored, I've probably charged the equivalent of one person to go and do the work with. So the way I
Mm.
look at it, it's like that one person who I may have charged a premium fee covers for me to be able to go and support a student, somebody who is a single parent who hasn't got the money, but they want to be able to get their business off the ground, and they will come and through a recommendation for someone, they will come and we'll have a conversation. Or,
Yeah.
uh, I may have helped somebody to raise, 15 million pounds for their business and really help them around shaping out the cap table and the equity and all the rest of it. But then I go back and I can work with some social entrepreneurs around how they can make a real impact in their area of London, working with young people and homeless and all the rest of it.
Mm.
So for me, I think it's misguided sometimes that people think that I am this person who's out of reach because of expense.
Mm.
However, if you actually look carefully, if you take the time and you literally go over the last 10 years, you'll see that I have released so much information around articles, around contents, podcasts, videos of the way I think and the way that I'll do things and work. And I've given away a lot of that stuff for free.
That's true.
And a lot of times, and I'll be in communities and I'll share, this, I will share some stuff, some of the stuff that I've learned. And so to be fair, at one point that really kind of like got under my skin. I was like, well, people think, oh, this guy, da, da, da. And then I was like, you know what? I don't have to explain to anybody what I'm doing on the outside when I know what I'm doing. So my
Yeah.
legacy is that I am, I will always pride myself on being a community builder. I will always pride myself that I've spent more time giving stuff away for free than what I've charged for.
Mm.
And if I'm going to say the last thing that I want to be in my legacy is that I came into this world and I lived full and I left empty.
Oh, I love that. That's the whole point of life, isn't it? You live. If I always say to myself, if tomorrow was my last day, would I be happy? And I say yes, because I've always done what I wanted to do,
Yeah,
without actually causing harm to anybody. And I
yeah,
think that's important. That God,
100%.
God is, people believe in God. I believe God is love, whatever you define it. And if you focus on that energy,
Mhm.
life will always turn out to be good. Such a beautiful podcast with you, David.
Thank you.
Could have spoken for another hour, but
Well, we'll have a part two. We'll have a part two.
not exactly a part two. And one thing, so thanks so much. If anybody wants to hear about you, where
Mhm.
can they find about you? Is anything exciting that we need to be aware of?
No, I'm only going to tell you our secret that we had before. I am not letting that out yet. That's going to come out.
I was tempting you.
No, that's gonna come out. But I need, you know what it is. Again, this is really interesting. Sometimes people want to jump on a wagon. You'll know this, right? Sometimes people want to jump on a wagon and not necessarily understand what it takes to get to that space.
Yeah.
I want to build some momentum. What I told you before, which we're going to keep between us, I'm building up momentum over the next 6 to 9 months, and I'm building up. And then towards the end of the year, I'm going to be more outspoken about it.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm just really excited about being in a space where I can help CEOs or senior executives from large businesses to small founding businesses who have really got ambitions to grow and scale to
Mm.
just make a judgment. People can find me on LinkedIn. That's where most people go to, or they can just type in David McQueen. I'll come up in the top 3 results anyway, right? But a lot of
Like,
that stuff.
but with a name like yours, it's easy to find you. That's
Right.
really good. So, one more question, just to really just make sure that at what point do people really need you? What is the trigger? They say, okay, yeah, at this point, I need to call David.
I think it's when, no, I think, let me change my language. I believe it's when they've got to a point and they've realized I I want to go bigger. And that could be in terms of revenue, that could be in terms of impact, that could be in terms of team. But
Mm.
I want to go bigger, but I need the tools and I need the sounding board of somebody who's had the kind of experience that I'm looking for in order for me to be able to go to that next level. So again, it might be scaling a team from 5 to 20. That's very, very, very different. It might be going from raising £500,000 to £5 million, and this is the one that I'm quite excited about for the next year, apart from my other secret project that I told you about. I'm looking at I'd really love to be. I want to get in touch with a lot of individuals who want to exit their businesses.
Mm,
So older people who want to exit their businesses, or people who have just kind of like they're done. They've still got a business of value and they want to exit it.
yeah.
And so my role there is I can either do one of two things. I'll either go in and help them to be able to make sure that they go through it. Because look, a lot of people, when they said, they don't realize the anxiety and the confidence and or the hole that feels. But the second bit that I think that I'm really excited about is basically helping them to find the buyers.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. It's a big business. I think people don't think about the exit strategy soon enough, and then they
Yeah,
realize it's too late and never done the compliance and all the
yeah.
work. I know that my first business was a lifestyle business.
Mm.
So obviously when I exited, there was nothing with it that to be sold. So
Yeah.
don't think in terms of all these elements. So always think about your exit. So this one I'm
That's-
definitely giving my exit. Huh?
I think that's a beautiful thing that you probably would have learned from now. And there's a book called, and I know we're going to go now, but there's a book called The E-Myth by a guy called Michael Gerber. And
Mm,
one of the things I really liked about that book is they said, look, whatever business you're in, even if it's a lifestyle business or what have you, and we can do that, always think of your core thing that you're offering as a product. And so making sure it's a product beyond your personal brand. So,
yeah.
like, for example, right, in David McQueen is a brand of a larger company called Pattern Interrupts. And within the organization, there are my assessments. There's the Brave Leader I've done around the Brave book. There's the Brave. Oh, I've got about 6 or 7 pieces of IP that if I wanted to take my name away from that and just literally give it to someone else, it's IP that I can sell.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I can sell. And so for me, I think a lot of people should kind of like go with the mindset, even if they don't want to do that. And there's another book called Built to Sell by a guy called, I think his name is Michael Warrillow. Basically, the idea is that what you do is you build it to create revenue and to make impact in your community, but build it like, even if you don't want to sell it, build it like you were going to sell it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
They give you an option. I love that.
I know
I
what we're
think
going
all
to
this,
do on our next podcast now.
I know we need to do another podcast. I'm sure we'll have you back, especially when you're at that point when you're ready to launch your secret, thing.
Yes, my love, I will do. Yes, I will do.
David, it's been such a pleasure to have you on this podcast episode. And for all my listeners, I hope that you enjoy this conversation. It's a kind of conversation that I always advise to listen twice and take some notes and take one action, do something about it. And for everybody else, time to leave you. And I will see you very, very soon on the Six Hive podcast. Bye for now.
If you took something from today's conversation, do 2 things. First, share this episode with someone in your network who is building, leading, or thinking bigger. Second, if you're curious about discovering and building your own professional networks on Sixth Hive, you can sign up for free using the link in the show notes. And if you're interested in sponsoring a Sixth Hive event or podcast and connecting your organization with the professional networks shaping tomorrow's opportunities, you'll find the details there too.